Hello there, thank you for stopping by the channel. Today's story explores the hidden corners of the human psyche, gentle yet profound. Stay tuned, and don't forget to support the channel so you won't miss the next stories. I knew I was going to regret this, but when I packed my bag I felt a rush, the kind of excitement I hadn't felt in years. I told my husband I was going for a weekend solo trip, something I needed for myself, and I thought it would be harmless. Just a few days away to clear my head. Little did he know I wasn't just getting away, I was going to pretend I was single again. That's where everything started to spiral. Hey, I'm Myra, 36. You probably wouldn't think someone my age would even consider doing something like this. But trust me, after years of the same routine, the same face across the dinner table, I needed to feel like I was wanted again. And my husband, well, he didn't know the half of it. I wasn't just traveling alone, I was looking for something I'd lost long ago. The day I left, I kissed June goodbye just like any other day, but something felt off. Maybe it was my guilt, maybe it was my excitement. Either way, I knew I wasn't coming back the same. I said all the right things when I left. I'll miss you, I said, I'll keep in touch. But in my head, I knew I wasn't just going away to get some fresh air. Once I got on that plane, I told myself it was just a break. That's what I kept telling myself. But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about getting away. There were things I had pushed down for so long that I couldn't ignore anymore. I needed to feel desired. I needed to feel alive. I'll never forget the first night in the hotel. I walked into the room, dropped my bags on the floor, and looked out at the city below. I wasn't alone in that room. Though I was already thinking about the people I might meet, it wasn't like I was planning to cheat. I just wanted attention, but that's the thing, right? You tell yourself it's just harmless flirting, but the moment you make the first move, it's no longer innocent. It started with a simple conversation at a bar. He was charming, the kind of guy I could talk to easily. I was dressed casually, feeling confident but not trying too hard. We spoke about life, about what brought us to this city, and about being away from home. He asked if I was visiting alone, and I could have lied. I could have told him I was married. But the truth was, I wasn't ready to let anyone know I was tied down. For the first time in years, I wanted to be someone else. I know what you're thinking. Myra, you're married. Why would you do this? But the thing is, you don't realize how much you've changed until you get a taste of something different. That night, I felt like I was the young woman I used to be, the one who had options, the one who felt like she had control. And that feeling, it was intoxicating. It didn't stop there. The next few days, I kept running into him. And every time I saw him, my heart would race a little faster. We talked more, we laughed more, he made me feel alive. But I wasn't thinking about June, not in the way I should have been. I wasn't thinking about what I had at home, about the life we built together, the years we spent supporting each other. I was thinking about myself. About the woman I had lost somewhere in the middle of marriage and responsibilities. But when it happened, when I made the decision to actually go further, that was the moment it all clicked. I wasn't pretending to be single anymore. I wasn't just having fun. I was cheating, and I knew it. It wasn't a one-time thing, either. We saw each other almost every day, and the more we were together, the less guilty I felt. And that's the thing, isn't it? Once you've crossed a line, it's so easy to just keep stepping further over it. I never planned on telling June. I wasn't planning on getting caught, either. But when I started making excuses about why I wasn't texting back, why I was out later than expected, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. That maybe June knew something wasn't right. Even if I wasn't ready to admit it to myself. This wasn't just about me and the guy I was with. This was about the bigger picture, the marriage, the lies. The reasons I wasn't being honest with myself about what I needed anymore. And as much as I wanted to brush it all off, I couldn't. Because sooner or later, the truth was going to come out. So I guess this is where it all started, the first time I felt free. And the first time I betrayed the trust I had with my husband. The guilt wasn't there yet, but it was coming. It always does. What happens next? Well, that's where everything starts to fall apart. I couldn't stop thinking about it, the guilt, the excitement, the fear. Everything was starting to blend together, and I didn't know what to make of it. Each time I looked at my phone, I felt this knot in my stomach. June was texting me, asking how my trip was going, reminding me of the things I had promised him. But I kept brushing him off, giving him short replies. I didn't want him to know what was happening. I tried to tell myself it was just a fling. Just something to help me feel like myself again. But that's the problem with lies, they snowball. And every time I lied to June, I felt like I was slipping further away from the person I used to be. The longer I stayed in this single headspace, the more detached I became from my own reality. I didn't realize how deep I had gotten into it, until the morning it all came crashing down. I woke up early, feeling both restless and excited, and went to meet him. I was supposed to be out exploring the city, but instead I found myself heading straight to his hotel room. No one knew where I was. No one knew what I was doing. I kept telling myself it was fine. It wasn't like I was sleeping with him every day, right? It wasn't like I had made a full commitment to this guy. But that morning, I did. I made the choice. That's when I felt it, the real guilt. The moment I realized that I wasn't just having fun anymore. I was crossing a line I couldn't undo. It wasn't just about feeling desired anymore. It was about betraying the one person who trusted me the most. The man I'd been with for over a decade. The man who had stood by me through everything. And yet, here I was, lying to him, pretending I was someone else. I thought about telling June the truth. I thought about packing my bags and coming home. But I couldn't. It was too late for that ... But here's the thing. I didn't know that June was already getting suspicious. I hadn't realized how many red flags I was leaving behind. I had been careless with my time, with my communication. He'd been noticing that something was off. He didn't know what exactly, but he could feel it. And that's when it happened. I got back to my hotel room that evening, my heart racing with anticipation. But also with dread. I'd been avoiding Chan's calls all day. And now he was texting me again, asking when I was going to be back. The more I avoided him, the more the guilt ate away at me. I tried to respond quickly, telling him I was out with friends and that I'd be home soon, but the texts kept coming. At that moment, I had a choice to make. I could keep lying, keep pretending everything was fine. Pretend I was still the woman he thought I was. Or I could come clean, but I didn't. I didn't have the guts to face what I'd done. And that's when the real consequences started to kick in. Because June wasn't just sitting at home waiting for me to come back, no. June was putting two and two together. And he had a plan. I didn't know it at the time. But June had already been doing some digging. He had started checking my social media, looking through my texts, and even reached out to some of the people I'd been talking to. He wasn't blind, he wasn't an idiot. He knew something was up, and the fact that I kept avoiding his calls only made him more determined to figure it out. That night, I got a call that stopped my heart. It wasn't from June ... It was from an unknown number. "Myra, we need to talk," the voice on the other end said. My stomach dropped. I knew instantly it was June ... I stayed silent for a moment, trying to come up with anything to say. But I couldn't. There was no excuse. "I know what you're doing," he said. And the words hit me harder than I ever expected ... "I know you've been lying to me. I know about him. I know everything." I felt my knees weaken and I collapsed onto the bed. I didn't know how to respond. How could I? There was nothing I could say to make this right. "Not anymore. I need you to come home, Myra, now." I stayed quiet, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to deny everything, pretend he was wrong. But I knew, deep down, that he wasn't. He had all the proof. I had been caught. I was crushed. I had no idea what was coming next, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. June wasn't just going to forgive me like this. And I had no idea how I was going to face him. I wanted to end this story here, to leave you hanging with the aftermath. But I can't. I need to tell you what happened next. It's not just about the betrayal, it's about the fallout. I never thought I'd hear Chun's voice like that, so calm. But with that undercurrent of hurt that cut through everything. He wasn't angry, not yet. He was just done. I didn't know what to do. I felt like the world was falling apart around me. And for a second, I almost wanted to hang up the phone and pretend this conversation wasn't happening. But I knew that would only make things worse. I'm sorry, I whispered. Even though I knew those words would never be enough. I wasn't sure why I even said them, maybe out of habit. Maybe because I thought it might ease the tension. But I could hear the disbelief in his voice as he replied. Sorry, he scoffed. You think saying sorry is going to fix this, Myra? You think you can just wipe away what you've done by apologizing? It hit me like a slap in the face. No, I couldn't fix this. There was no magic word or gesture that was going to undo the damage I'd caused. I had crossed a line I couldn't erase. I don't even know why I did it, I said, my voice trembling now. It wasn't about him, it wasn't about anyone else. I just ... I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel like I was still me. Like I wasn't just a wife and a mother. Like I could still be the person I was before all of this. My words hung in the air. I don't know why I thought he would understand. Maybe I was hoping he'd hear my honesty. And somehow, just somehow, it would make things better. But I could tell from the silence on the other end that it didn't matter. He wasn't hearing me anymore. He was processing. And I could feel the distance growing with each second that passed. You think you're the only one who feels lost sometimes. June said, his voice tight. I've been here too, Myra. I've been trying to figure out how to stay connected, how to fix things. But you, he let out a frustrated breath. You took the easy way out. I closed my eyes, biting my lip, trying to hold back the tears. He was right, I took the easy way out. I ran away from the discomfort, from the hard conversations we needed to have. Instead of facing the problems we had, I tried to numb it with someone else's attention, someone else's touch. And now, everything was crashing down. What do you want me to do, June? I asked, barely able to get the words out. I can't take back what happened. I know I messed up. I know I've hurt you. But I don't know how to make it right. There was another pause, a long one. I could hear him breathing on the other end. I waited for him to hang up, for him to say something that would end everything. But he didn't. I want you to come home, he said finally. And when you get here, we're going to talk, really talk. And for the first time in the conversation, his voice cracked. I don't know what's going to happen after that, Myra. I don't know if I can forgive you, but you need to come home. I felt a lump form in my throat. I will, I'm on my way. I hung up the phone. But my hands were shaking and my head was spinning. I didn't know what was waiting for me when I got back. The thought of facing him, of having to look him in the eyes and see the hurt I'd caused, was overwhelming. I didn't know what I was expecting when I walked through the door. Maybe a fight, maybe an argument, maybe silence. But when I got home, June was waiting for me, sitting at the kitchen table. He didn't stand up when I walked in, didn't move a muscle. He just stared at me ... and for a second. I thought he might say something, anything. But all I heard was the tick of the clock on the wall. It felt like hours, even though it was only a minute. Finally, I broke the silence. June, I don't know if I can do this, he said, his voice steady but cold. I don't know if I can look at you the same way again. I don't know if I can trust you, not after everything. And that hit me harder than anything else, he'd said. Because I didn't know if I could trust myself either. How could I? How could I ever trust my own choices again when I had done this to him? I sat down across from him, my hands folded in my lap, feeling so small. I never meant to hurt you, I said quietly. I never wanted to destroy what we had. He didn't reply, he just kept staring at me. And I could see the pain in his eyes, the betrayal. I knew I had shattered something that could never be fully repaired. And I didn't know what the future would hold for us. I need space, June said, after what felt like an eternity. I need to figure out what I want, Myra, and I don't know if that includes you. The words stung like nothing else. I knew this was coming. But hearing it out loud made it real. I understand, I whispered, even though I didn't want to. Take all the time you need. He stood up. And for a moment, I thought he was going to walk away from me completely. But instead, he just shook his head and left the room. And there I was, sitting alone in the quiet of our home. Realizing just how much I had lost. I don't know where things go from here. I don't know if June and I can ever rebuild what we had. But I do know this. I can never go back to that moment. To that feeling of being free and single, pretending I wasn't attached. Because the truth is, I'm married, and no matter how badly I wanted to escape that for a little while, it was never worth the price I paid. I've lost trust, respect, and maybe even love, but the biggest loss. It was my own self-respect, and now I have to live with that. The days that followed felt like punishment in slow motion. June barely spoke to me, and when he did, it was only about the essentials. Bills, groceries, stuff about the house. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't cursing me out. But that silence, it was worse. I kept waiting for him to explode. To finally say everything that was on his mind. I almost wanted him to. At least then I'd know where he stood. But he didn't, and that was its own kind of torture. Every night, I'd hear him get into bed. His side of the mattress colder than it had ever been. I'd stare at the ceiling, counting the seconds between his breaths, hoping he'd say something. But he never did, and I knew what that meant. One night, I stayed up later than usual. Sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone. Mindlessly refreshing social media, as if it could somehow distract me from the mess I'd made. I checked Chun's Instagram, something I hadn't done in years. There was nothing new on his feed, but then I saw something that made my heart stop. He had posted a story. June never posted stories. It was a photo of a whiskey glass sitting on a dimly lit bar top. 2 words were written at the bottom of the screen, in plain white text. Needed this. It wasn't much. But I knew what it meant. June didn't drink alone. I stared at it for a while, feeling the burn of jealousy, guilt, and panic all at once. Was he with someone? Was this payback? My mind spiraled with every possibility, each one worse than the last. I told myself I deserved it. If he was out there doing what I did, I had no right to be upset. But that logic didn't stop my chest from tightening, like I'd been sucker punched. I wanted to call him. I wanted to ask him where he was, who he was with. But I knew I'd sound desperate, and desperation wasn't going to save me. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. His car was gone. No note, no text. No message, just gone. I checked my phone. And that hollow feeling in my chest grew. No missed calls, no texts. Just that photo still lingering in my mind. For the next few hours, I paced around the house, convincing myself he'd come back. He's just blowing off steam, I thought. He just needs space. But something about the air felt different that day. Then it happened. I heard the garage door. I rushed to the front window, like I was a teenager waiting for curfew. His car pulled in slowly, and for a brief second, relief washed over me. He's home, he came back. But then I saw it, a box. A brown cardboard box tucked under his arm as he walked up the driveway. Not a package, not something he ordered online. No. I knew exactly what it was. I'd seen that box before. It was one of the storage boxes from our closet. The ones we only use for moving or packing things away. I backed away from the window like he could see me through it. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. He walked through the front door. Eyes locked straight ahead like I wasn't even there. He didn't look angry. He didn't look sad. He looked settled. Like a man who had made a decision and wasn't going to be swayed. "June," I said, barely recognizing my own voice. "What's that for?" He set the box on the kitchen table with a dull thud. "I'm packing some stuff," he said plainly, not even glancing at me. He started moving with calm precision, picking up random things from the living room. Grabbing books from the shelves, taking his favorite mug from the cabinet. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't frantic. It was methodical. Wait. I moved toward him, hands out. Like I could physically stop him if I just got close enough. Can we talk before you do this? Please, June, please don't do this like this. Not like this. He finally looked at me. Really looked at me. His eyes weren't red. His face wasn't tense. He just looked tired. We've talked, Myra, he said quietly. I've done all the talking I'm going to do. No. My voice cracked and I felt tears building behind my eyes. You can't just walk out. This isn't you, June. This isn't us. I was standing in front of him now, blocking his path, like that would somehow stop him. He tilted his head, letting out a short, humorless laugh. This is us, Myra. This is exactly who we are now. I shook my head, trying to keep it together. I messed up. Okay, I know I messed up. But we can come back from this, June. We've been through worse. No, I've been through worse, he corrected me, and I stood by you, every time. Every single time, Myra. But this. He gestured around the room, like he was pointing at everything that had ever happened between us. This isn't something I can stand by. I could feel it slipping away. The life we built, the promises we made. It was all crumbling, and I was powerless to stop it. I'm not giving up on us, I said, my voice firmer now. Like saying it with conviction would make it true. You can't just leave, June. You're my husband. We're supposed to fight for this. He set the mug down on the counter, his eyes softening in a way that made it worse. I fought, Myra. I fought for us, for a long time, but at some point, you realize you're the only one fighting. My legs felt weak. I sat down at the table, staring at my hands like they belonged to someone else. I couldn't think of anything to say that didn't sound desperate or hollow. Please stay. Please don't leave me. Please give me one more chance, but I knew it wouldn't work. June picked up the box, giving me one last look. Not angry, not bitter, just done. Take care of yourself, Myra, he said. And with that, he walked out the door. I sat there for hours after he left. My phone buzzed a few times. Probably spam emails or random notifications, but I didn't check. I didn't care. The house was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you realize just how loud love used to be. For the first time in years, I was completely alone. I thought about calling him, begging him to come back. But I didn't, because deep down, I knew. It wouldn't matter. I had pretended to be single while I was traveling. Now, I didn't have to pretend anymore. I was. Thank you for listening until the end. Every story holds a piece of someone's truth, and maybe a piece of your own. If this touched you in any way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories. See you in the next video.